We're here at the Jensen Center, and we're going to take a look at some of the plantings, and in some cases some specific plants that we've done over the last several years, starting with kind of the front shade garden in front of the building. We started this project, I think it was in 2017, when Isaac, our summer intern that year, put in this flagstone path to connect to the new path that ends up going over to campus. And then the next year we started planting the understory. This had all been lawn at one time. Eric and I planted these 2 birch trees years ago, and they grew up and were throwing enough shade that we could do a shade garden in here. So we started planting quite a bit of Pennsylvania sedge. There's some spikenard in here, some ostrich ferns, some early meadow rue, some Canada wild ginger, a few other things, some snowberry. And we've added to it over the years. It's starting to fill in nicely. We'll probably add a little bit more next spring, but we're just turning this into what was at one time a really pretty shabby looking lawn that we mowed a couple times a year. Now to what is a nice shade garden. We have a couple of an Emma's chair and an Emma's bench for people to sit, and people sit out here a lot in this nice shady area. So this is still a work in progress, but it's really coming along nicely. The 2.5 inches of rain we had last weekend really helped because it was getting pretty dry in here. But it's looking better and better all the time. So this is the front shade garden at the Jensen Center. Also in 2017 we started this, and this is the south of that shade garden we just looked at. In front of the great room at the Jensen Center is a little meadow area that we started planting in 2017. Isaac, the same intern that did the little stone walk through that shade garden, planted these from little plants. And it's been coming along slowly, but it's getting there. And we have black-eyed Susan in here, we have yellow coneflower, golden Alexanders, little blue stem, some monarda or bee balm, and the milkweed's coming on its own, and as have some of the black-eyed Susan. So it's a work in progress. There's some bracken fern creeping in from the east side, and we still have a fair number of weeds in here. A lot of Queen Anne's lace and a lot of weedy grass. So we have to still work on this, but it is coming along, and more stuff is flowering in here. But we did want, instead of a mowed lawn here, of course, we wanted something more natural. So this is our little kind of mini prairie or meadow that's now 5 years old and still a work in progress. So we're in front of the Jensen Center in the parking lot looking at another work in progress. This is one of what will end up being 7 different pollinator plantings. These are native Door County grasses and forbs like black-eyed Susan, little blue stem, lance-leaf coreopsis, a bee balm, a butterfly milkweed, and maybe a few others. We're planting from little plugs, and Eric and I started this 2 springs ago and didn't get watered enough, and then our snowplow kind of peeled about half of it up over the winter, so we have to stake it better. But these are meant to be like little mini meadows or mini prairies that will attract a lot of butterflies and other pollinators, in that once they're filled in won't require a lot of maintenance. So this is one. There's one behind us that's being watered right now. We're going to do 3 more in September. I have the plants ordered already, and then the last 2 next spring is the plan. And once they fill in, they will provide a lot of color, and they'll be great for all of our native pollinators. The dominant plant in bloom right now all around the clearing in Door County is Queen Anne's lace, which is really a weed. It's a non-native plant that's grows everywhere in sunny areas. It can be very weedy. It's very attractive. There's kind of doily-like inflorescence, these little individual white flowers that when they're done and pollinated, they form this little nest where the seeds develop. This is actually the plant from which carrots were derived. This is also called wild carrot. If you look at it, you'll see it has carrot-like foliage. And over time they developed plants with larger, tastier roots that were and oftentimes orange in color. So this is a wild carrot, edible. You can pull it and eat it. Doesn't taste as good as the ones from the store, but it is edible. But it's just in bloom everywhere right now with these attractive lace-like, doily-like flower clusters. Queen Anne's lace used to be called in the old days, old days, Saint Anne's lace. Saint Anne is the patron saint of lace makers, believe it or not. And I wonder if it changed from Saint Anne's lace to Queen Anne's lace sometime during the Reformation in England. I don't know. The other thing that's in bloom right now that's outstanding is, in my opinion, is spikenard, which gets to be so big people think it's a shrub, but it does die back to the ground. In winter, it's an herbaceous perennial. It comes back to this size, sometimes bigger, the next season. But it's in full bloom right now. The individual flower is very tiny, a little star-shaped flower, but they're in these larger flower clusters, or inflorescences, which is a cluster of flowers. And these fertilized flowers will turn into a little, almost black berry later in the season, which different creatures, birds and small mammals, eat. So it's an outstanding plant. It's got great foliage too. So pretty in bloom because of these big clusters. Gorgeous when it's in fruit later in the season, but just makes this big, bold statement, a bold, coarse texture. It's a wonderful plant for the perennial garden. Here it is in back of the Jensen Center in this woodland garden. And for the first time since we planted it, the ostrich fern, which are behind the spikenard, have given up the ghost. It got so dry here for so long that they started to dry up, and then by the time we had our big rain last weekend, it was too late for the ostrich ferns. They'll come back next spring, but they won't look very good the rest of the season. But the spikenard looks fantastic.